Well, good morning, folks. Thanks for coming. My name is Bob Plashke. I'm the CEO of Sonim Technologies. Thanks so much for taking the time to spend a few minutes with us. Today is an exciting day for us here at Sonim. We're announcing a very large, at least for us, a very large award from the U.S. Army in conjunction with our partners with Cisco. We'll try to give you a quick briefing about that. We issue a press release just kind of right after this session. What we'd like to do is give you just some sense of what we're trying to do at the U.S. Army, at some of their training bases, and then answer the questions you might have. First, let me, though, introduce the rest of the folks who will be participating. We're so excited to have our Congresswoman that represents our district here at San Mateo, Congresswoman Speier. And from Cisco, our partner that we're thrilled to be with is Marla Ahmad, who's Senior Vice President of Cisco. And most importantly, the folks that we try to serve, or we're excited to serve, folks, our friends from the U.S. Army. Now, we pulled them from the local recruiting station, so, but we really appreciate you guys stepping up and saying hello. We have Staff Sergeant Kay and Staff Sergeant Shriver. Thank you so much for being here. So, a little bit of context, and then I'll ask the Congresswoman to come up and talk. The U.S. Army trains over 150,000 soldiers every year, and they train them in primarily three bases: Fort Irwin in Southern California, Fort Polk in Louisiana, and then a base in Southern Germany, which I can't pronounce that name. They run through hundreds and hundreds of tanks, thousands of Humvees, hundreds of Apache helicopters. Basically, it's war games. And they do this to make sure that our brave soldiers are prepared if and when they have to be called into combat. The U.S. Army, to manage this massive logistics process, which I'll describe a few minutes later, they use thousands and thousands of communication devices and collaboration devices to kind of help them kind of do their work. And a couple of years ago, they decided that they could do it better. They could actually go out to industry, to private industry, and look for consumer off-the-shelf like technologies, like what we make, our ruggedized smartphones, and they could actually help themselves actually run these exercises better, more productively, and help save taxpayers money and help make the soldiers better. And so, after many, many months of work and due diligence and kind of bake-offs and whatnot, the U.S. Army selected Sonim Technologies, selected us as their provider of handsets, and selected Cisco in terms of providing all the communication and collaboration software. And for us, this is a multi-million-dollar contract. It'll mean we've already added jobs here in San Mateo. We'll be adding more jobs over the next 2 years as we deploy the software out. And so it's allowed us to really take a big step up. And in that context, we couldn't have done it without the help of our Congresswoman. As I was describing earlier, the process of engaging the Department of Defense is not easy. It's a very big place, and very hard for small companies to actually penetrate. And if you think about some of the challenges of Silicon Valley companies, we are small, we're nimble, we're fast, but we don't have the money for lobbyists. We can't afford lobbyists. We can't afford to do business, I guess, the way maybe business has been done in the past to some degree. So as it relates to engaging the government. And so we went out 2 years ago. I just personally went out 2 years ago. I said, look, my Congresswoman is Jackie Speier. Maybe I'll just knock on the door. Maybe she'll answer. Amazingly enough, she did. She brought us in. She tried to learn our business. She said, yeah, this is a great product. This is something that I think is important. Let me make a few phone calls. And she introduced us into the right places into the Department of Defense. There's no averting the process. You still have to go through the process. You still have to compete. But at least we can compete fairly, and our product could be viewed in that context. So I'm so grateful to her and our staff for just helping small companies like us find our way to doing things we think are very valuable and helping folks like you guys. So with that, I'll introduce Congresswoman Speier.
Thank you, Bob, and good morning, everyone. I'm truly excited to be here at Sonim today because it's a great success story. Excuse excuse me, I think this pollen is getting to me as well.
There you go.
And what it highlights is the great creativity and technical skills that we have right here in the Valley, particularly here in San Mateo County. So my message to small business in the Bay Area is this: you don't need a lobbyist to get a contract with the Department of Defense. Sonim is proof of that, and they are now boasting a $7 to $10 million contract as a result of their efforts to acquire the ability and the success that came with bringing their product to the Department of Defense. Now, to put it in perspective, the Department of Defense spends a stunning $110 billion a year. Now, that's on procurement, which in Beltway talk is another way of saying the purchasing of goods and services. Of that, $110 billion, about 21% of that $110 billion goes to small businesses. Now that's not chump change, that's $21 billion. Another $68 billion is spent on research. And the Department of Defense buys everything, from food to construction to equipment to satellites. But what I've learned since starting to work on this issue in Congress is that much of the money can be wasted. In fact, did you know that $48 billion in weapons programs were simply canceled between the years 2001 and 2011? Or that the Department of Defense overpaid $430 million on spare parts? The DoD is used to working with mega defense contractors who receive untold billions for simple tasks and constantly try to reinvent the wheel. But the non-defense private sector, particularly technology companies in Silicon Valley, can often provide identical products for far less and saving taxpayers money, and oftentimes can do so with solutions that are right off the shelf. Secretary Ash Carter was here just a few weeks ago and was basically saying to the Valley, we need you. And it's our job, I believe, to make that an easier pathway. Take Sonim. If the Department of Defense, excuse me, if the Department of Defense had started the procurement process from scratch, they might have spent millions to develop an ultra-rugged cell phone that may have been over budget, late, and still have been inferior to Sonim's product. Fortunately, Sonim was able to crack the code of the complex, often impenetrable DoD procurement process and obtain the contract. Now their rugged phones will enable operations at the National Training Center at Fort Irwin, right here in California, and Joint Readiness Training Center at Fort Polk, Louisiana, to provide our soldiers the skills they need to meet the next challenge. As part of my work on the House Armed Services Committee, I'm dedicated to saving taxpayers money by encouraging far more of those kinds of collaborations in the future. Why is DoD spending billions of dollars on a computer system that could easily be built anywhere in Silicon Valley for a fraction of the price? The Valley has proven over and over again that they can deliver. And that's the tone that goes that they can deliver in a cost-efficient, creative, and even world-changing manner. So I'm here today to say congratulations to Sonim. We were happy to be part of their being able to access the DoD, but they had to prove themselves. And they proved themselves in a very, very effective way. And I'm also announcing here today that as part of my effort, I'm going to embark on a special small business conference that's going to be called Cracking the Code. And we're going to bring in a Department of Defense procurement specialists to help small businesses in this region benefit from the billions of dollars that are spent on procurement each year, and the money that's specifically set aside for small business. There's no reason why this valley and all the great entrepreneurs and small businesses in this region shouldn't be able to access the opportunities. And I thank you.
So let me quickly just describe the use case, kind of how the phones are used and why. So imagine it's Fort Irwin. It's hundreds of thousands of acres. They bring out tens of thousands of soldiers. They go through war games, and these war games last 4 weeks. Every morning the soldiers go out and they engage in battle. Then they come back at night, and there are literally hundreds and hundreds of inspectors, observers that actually watch the battles, and they take photographs of what happens, and then they come back, and then the next morning they walk the soldiers through it. Now, today, last year, before we and Cisco implemented our solutions, they would go out with a big, bulky private radio, called land mobile radio, a big $5,000 radio on their hip. The soldiers would have those radios as well, and the tanks and the helicopters, and then someone in command would say, okay, war games begin, so start. So everyone can start to do what they do. The inspectors would have cameras, and they would take hundreds of photographs, and they'd take photographs of the battle scenes before the opposing forces came in, and they'd take photographs of what happened, and they'd take photographs of kind of what happened after the battle finished. These hundreds of inspectors that would, at some point the war games are called to an end, so the radios say stop. All the inspectors go back, and they dump off hundreds of cameras to 50, in this case, 50 privates, who then take all the cards out. They upload all the photographs, and then they basically put all these photographs into PowerPoint presentations, so that the next morning, the inspectors can come and take their presentations and kind of walk the troops through kind of what happened. Here's what you did right, here's what you did wrong. So this process, oh goodness gracious, I just started it, okay. This process not only took 50 privates worth of kind of people's time, it also, the equipment's incredibly expensive. You think about, in this case, 5,000 to 8,000 devices at roughly $5,000. So that's $25 million worth of equipment just to manage the process. So what we have done in combination with Cisco is that we provide basically ultra-rugged smartphones. These are touchscreen Android devices, things that you would normally buy, you could buy yourself, but built for the specifications for the U.S. Army. It provides the same walkie-talkie experience, so you press the button on the side. I do it, except that there'll be feedback here, but you press the button and we'll do a demo later. And you have the same walkie-talkie experience. And so these will go into Humvees, they'll go into the Apache helicopters, they'll go with the soldiers. And the inspectors can use them as well, and would use them. The inspectors additionally, though, can do something that you would normally think a smartphone should do. They can press a button on the side, it activates the camera, they take the photographs of the battle scene, they photograph. But unlike the old days where they have to bring the cameras back and download the photographs, all these photographs are uploaded over a 4G network instantaneously. They're all put into an application that downloads them into PowerPoint presentations. They're all geocoded, all location coded, so they can actually figure out where in the battle they are, so that the inspector doesn't have to tell them, hey, I was on the North Ridge. It's all geocoded for them, all time-stamped. And so when the inspectors come back, basically the presentations are finished. And so we've gone from 50 privates stuck all night long, downloading thousands of pictures, to 5 privates who are just effectively managing the process. And you're replacing $25 million of equipment with what will roughly be $2 or $3 million worth of equipment. And all of this is what is available, as the Congresswoman said, it's all available commercially today. We sell our phones through AT&T, through Sprint. We provide these to folks like UPS and Federal Express and DHL, who use them in pretty extreme conditions. And now we're able to leverage, in combination with Cisco's fantastic software capabilities, leverage those into a solution that the U.S. Army can use and save a lot of money, 10x, basically 10 times what they would have spent if they replaced their existing systems, and in a much more productive way. And it makes perfect sense. Now, the little sales pitch for us is why are we unique or different. We make the toughest phones in the world, the toughest smartphones. These are they're in the Guinness World Book of Records as the toughest phone. They are completely waterproof. They're completely dustproof. They are very tough. You can kind of hammer a nail. You can, you can hammer a lot of things with these. They're, in addition to being tough and rugged, which is what's necessary for the Army, they're also very usable. So the screens are easier to see outside than they are inside. The volume is very loud. It's as loud as we're allowed to by law. The touch screen you can use with a glove, so the soldiers don't have to take their gloves off. So it's a very usable and durable piece of equipment that we built and deployed. It runs Android-based software, so it's just like a Samsung phone you might use. So very much kind of old rugged phones. The second thing we do is we do a great job of accessorization. So we have over 50 different accessories, things kind of hands-free cords that wrap around your ears so you can listen, or car kits. We built a car kit for Apache helicopters, so they can actually, or you can call it Apache kit, I guess is the right way of saying it, but you can basically lock the phones in and use them in Humvees and use them in tanks. So a lot of things that make the product more usable. And then finally, we as the Congresswoman said, we are part of the Silicon Valley, and so our job is to reach out and to collaborate with the leaders in the industry like Cisco in terms of software. And so our phones are very open from a platform perspective, and folks like Cisco can deploy their software in a way that makes the phones much more usable. So that's what kind of why I think we won. We also provide a 3-year unconditional guarantee. So if you break the phones, we replace them. Now we know that people like Waste Management and United Airlines are tough on phones. We're excited to see how soldiers are. We'll see what happens out on the battlefield. But we're excited about that, and it's our kind of our pledge for quality. None of this, though, would have happened without the great software and the great intelligence, basically the smarts that run the phones that Cisco provides. And so we were very proud and privileged to be selected by Cisco to partner with them. They're an industry, obviously, titan, and it's a nice kind of a stamp of approval for us to be able to partner with them. And so in that context, let me introduce Marla Amand, who will talk about Cisco's work here.
Thank you, Bob, and I'm delighted to be here to talk about our partnership with Sonim. I'm Mala Anand, and I run the Software and Services Platforms Group at Cisco. You'll see later on a demo of the software called Instant Connect. And what this allows us to do is, as Bob said, as we bundled it with the ruggedized devices, this software allows us to instantly connect very, very wide work teams. And it brings a completely new dimension to instant communication. So what we all know very well with our mobile devices, right, that there's a transformation happening where perhaps think about this as the next generation of a wearable ruggedized router. So beyond just people-to-people communication, we're now able to do device-to-device communication. And this really drives a whole new generation of being able to communicate instantly, very widely, and also allow prioritization of these messages across a large generation of different types of sensors, different types of ruggedized devices. And what we're seeing in the market is there's a whole evolution of Internet of Everything. And this drives a hyperconnectivity across devices, people, data, and business processes. And with this connectivity of devices, large amounts of data is generated. And through this software, now we can translate the data and information to business insights for our commanders and managers. We can transform business processes. What used to be manual and siloed business processes, now we're transforming it to automation, right, for our commanders and for managers as well. And very importantly, for people that are on the ground in these hyper-distributed sites, we're able to bring timely and contextual information. And this becomes really important. So in this case, for our managers and commanders, they can listen, to large and wide work streams and work teams across the board. And also, they can interrupt, right, through prioritized messages into these work teams and work streams as well. So it's a very exciting opportunity as we looked to bundle this software of Instant Connect together with these ruggedized routers. And so the value of partnerships becomes really, really important, right? Whether it's a value of partnerships, in this case, clearly with Sonim, where together we can very quickly bring tremendous more value. In this case, we're seeing the market transition. The market is transitioning from IT data centers into operational environments. And what this I mean is operational environments, whether it's oil and gas, or it's public safety and security, or it's retail. These environments are changing, and what's changing? They're becoming hyper-distributed. The reason, the ability for us to have hyper-responsive, fast communication with very easy user interfaces becomes very, very important. So in this regard, I'm absolutely delighted to announce our new solution that we're rolling out to the market with Sonim, where Cisco will bundle Sonim's ruggedized routers, phones, devices, new types of ruggedized devices, together with our software capabilities of Instant Connect. And together we will take this into the channel, such that we can drive this hyper-distributed, hyper-connectivity across devices, across data, across people and business processes, and completely change the environments. And this solution in particular for our armed forces, we're delighted. We think it's going to make it far more secure, it's going to allow for far more richer communication, and very importantly also protect, our people and the entire communication of our environment. So it's a very exciting partnership, and I'm delighted to do this together with Sonim. Thank you.
So I think we'll just, if there's questions, we're happy to answer questions, and then post questions, we'll do a short demonstration of how the software works. Questions? We were very compelling. Fair enough. Fair enough. So Dan, you just do a quick. Do you want me to? You do the demonstration. I'll screw it up.
No. So you see.
This is Dan O'Malley from Cisco.
I am Dan O'Malley, product manager for Cisco Instant Connect. So you can see 3 rugged Sonim XP6 devices. And what's nice is they're all on the same talk group. So if you look, you can see that Bob's on there, Mala's there, and of course Jackie. So you can see right on the screen who's listening to me when I squeeze my button. So you can push your button, which is right on the side of the device, and you can talk on the same group. Since they're so close to each other, we're going to get feedback. So I just warned you, so just squeeze your button. And with this little circle that you see,
You just turn the phone off.
it even works when you're on the screen.
Press and hold down.
There you go. See that? So, and this is, again, instantly communicating amongst the team. The other thing is sometimes people want private calls where you're on a group and then sometimes you might have to talk to the major or the administrator or a manager. So we have a private calling feature. So if you go to a contacts, you just click on this, you can see who's online in the entire system. So you hit the contacts button here and you can say, I'm going to do a private call to somebody. What that does is it creates a new channel in our software just for the 2 people that are going to do a private call. So Bob, I'm trying to give you a private call. So you see Bob, you click on his name, you see a little green dot, which means Bob's on the system, even if he's on another channel. And you can even have a mapping icon here. So when I click the map, I can see where Bob's at. Of course, you have to enable me to see you. But the private call feature is you just click on this and say, I'm going to make a private call. And so what it's doing is it's going to the server. It's saying, hey, set up a private call between me and Bob. Bob's phone starts ringing. He accepts it. And now we move to a new channel. So that's the point-to-point call. So when you squeeze your button back, they can't hear him anymore.
I can hear you loud and clear.
So there you go. So we're on a private call feature. We also do what's called scan. So sometimes work teams need to talk on many groups. So we can get up to 10 groups into a new scan channel. And what we do is in our software, in the routers, we create a new scanning channel and put all those audio streams into that channel. So when Mala would push her button, Bob will hear it, and if he squeezes his button, it goes back to Mala. Now, if Jackie was on a different channel, she pushes her button, Bob would hear it if he was on the scanning group, and he can go back to Jackie. So that's a nice little feature. And then the other thing is we have talker priority. So Jackie, we gave you the highest priority on
That's
this
good.
So if you and Mala pushed your button at the same time, Jackie's audio would override Mala. So I know you're right next to each other, so it's going to be scratching.
So I'm gonna override you.
Let's try that.
Yeah.
There we go.
And again, there's a half duplex mode and a full duplex mode. So basically what we're doing here is we're going beyond push-to-talk communications, right? You can see that's one feature. You have the priority preemption, the scanning, and then the last feature is the broadcast call. Sometimes you want your message to go to everybody no matter what channel they're on. Think of it as a one-way audio blast. So if you join the broadcast group and Jackie wanted to send a message, joins the broadcast group, pushes her button, and her audio goes to everyone. It preempts no matter what channel you're on, that audio goes to.
So let's go back to
So beyond that, we'll show you in the back, we have full dispatching software. We can tie into Cisco phones. And really, it's just not only a Wi-Fi network, it's 3G, 4G. We can work with the carriers. So sometimes customers might buy a push-to-talk service from a carrier. We can take those streams, turn them into packets, and combine them with our software. So it not only works standalone in the Wi-Fi environment, it works over 3G, 4G, LTE network. So that's a little bit about the demo. After this, you can look at our full-featured software in the back. Any questions?
Could you demonstrate the camera?
The camera, yes. So in your Sonim device, which is what's on the military, so let's say you're on a push-to-talk channel here, and you can even turn off the screen, and you can still, like I'm still on the private call with Bob, I can have my audio in the background. Okay, so the camera feature is, they wanted when I push my yellow button, I want to launch and bring up that camera. So you see here, so when I hold this, it'll automatically bring up my camera. So then I would take the picture of the soldiers on the field, and I can also squeeze my button while I'm looking at and recording that. You can see that. And it's got a front camera and a back camera. So
It does. I mean, and thanks very much, Dan. I mean, well, to finish up, I mean, I think it's just a great example. And thanks for the softball question. That actually helps. But it's a great example if you think about in your private life. I mean, the notion of talking while you're taking a photograph isn't a big deal, but in a military context or in a public safety with firemen and police, that is a very big deal because the radio, you know, take the radio up, but and these radios are big radios. You are not taking a photograph at the same time, so you kind of communicate and you put it down, and then you take your camera out and take your photograph. So, you know, we think so. Great demonstration. Thanks very much, Dan. This is just the start. If you think about all the things we do as consumers, this is what we want to, and we think we can bring to the Department of Defense and bring to public safety as well. A bunch of capabilities that we all take for granted, but currently don't exist for these folks. So, thanks everyone for taking the time. We really appreciate it. Thanks again, Congresswoman. It's nice to join, and thanks, Marla, for coming. We really appreciate it. Thank you.